Be strong.
Falling beasts ready to kill each other. Out comes the red-haired elf, who stares in amazement at the two kids already fighting even before the training has begun. Leon immediately recognizes the man to be the Zygarde family's brilliant sword, Lemur. He recalls that Lemur had retired because his energy core had been destroyed. He glances upon the sudden appearance of the man, expressing that he did not expect him to be here. Meanwhile, Lemur joyfully asks the kids to hold off the fight until at least the entrance ceremony ends. And obeying the brilliant sword, Burin walks away quietly as he scoffs. Moving forward, the entrance ceremony has started as all the students stand in line in front of a stage, where Lemur welcomes them all and joyfully introduces himself to be the head instructor, who will be in charge of their training. Pointing out the number of candidates to be 160, he expresses that it's way too many. And so, he says that he will cut down the numbers with a series of tests. In fact, he clarifies that the number will be cut down to a quarter. This sparks confusion and astonishment among the crowd of students as they question this absurd claim. But Lemur elaborates that he prefers to only keep a small number of elites and not bother with the riffraff. Spiking in anger, the Lord of the Demon Realm yells out to call the brilliant sword an arrogant bastard, threatening to cut down the elf's ears if he dares to look down on him. Leon desperately tries to shut him up as he strikes down on his bracelet. Lemur casually sits and rocks on his chair upon the stage as he expresses that his word is considered law on the training grounds. If anyone has a problem with what he has to say, they can take it up with the Patriarch. Following this warning, he asks to begin the tests right away. He points out at the students, telling them to immediately start running. This confuses the students as they at first question this absurd test, but later they rush away as they compete against each other diligently. Lemur cheers them on as he shouts that the basics of martial arts are physical strength and mental power, encouraging them to run as fast as they can. Sprinting before the other students, the spirit of the blue ball of fire appears in front of Leon to express his concern. It wonders why Leon is all the way in the back, when he should be aiming for the front. But Leon elaborates that it's not a competition, and he does not need to get past the other guys. Leon knows that Lemur is observing, expressing that he looks into others' potential and temperament, and he won't be judging based on just what the eye can see. Sweat trickles down his face. He huffs desperately, attempting to catch his breath, and he assesses that the winner in this test is the one who endures till the end. Concluding his assessment, he is determined that he will make it till the end no matter what. Commenting on the test, the instructors announce that Sir Burin and Lady Lunan can be seen sprinting at the front. They discuss that everyone is fast, but it is especially so in the case of these two. Another instructor also adds that the speed they are running at isn't their best, so he's sure that they can run for hours on end. They continue to observe the students as they rush away on the track, as they commend the speed of the leading two to be extraordinary for their age, which means that their future growth will be incredible as well. Turning their attention to our hero, they point out at him among the participants. They comment that he's been in the back all this time, unable to catch up, but they acknowledge that he is sick, which actually makes it impressive that he can run at all. Lemur looks upon the two instructors, observing the race and our hero as they conclude that he is going to fail. But Lemur's expression seems joyfully astonished, as he smiles and elaborates that it's interesting that he has never seen something like this before. Falling into deep contemplation, Lemur expresses that the humans whose talents he could not calculate were just the strongest people on the continent, which made it difficult to see the depths of their power. But as far as other people go, he can easily see their potential. For example, he can tell what sort of power Burin and Lunan will hold in their future. However, while pointing out at our boy Leon, he expresses that he cannot see anything at all. Lemur concludes that this could only mean that Leon is stronger than him, therefore he is out of his reach. He strokes his chin in curiousness and smiles as he remarks it to be interesting. The two kids that picked on our hero earlier now run past him as they point out that he had been so arrogant before, but now he can't even keep up with them at all. Leon is in last place, so the brats guess that he will fail the test soon. Not letting anything get in his way, our boy still continues to sprint and run with all his might, as he suddenly looks up in concern and questions that they're just running, even though it is supposed to be training. In his past life, Leon had to constantly run for his life from starved beasts, which was just a basic part of his training as an assassin. And so, he sprouts a wide smile on his face as he comments this training is far too easy in comparison. The race continues in full spirit as the students rush forward on the track. Observing the students is Lemur, the brilliant sword. He singles out Leon, questioning how he is still running. He elaborates that Leon had exhausted his stamina long ago, and is way past the boundary of determination. Lemur concludes that Leon shouldn't have any stamina left in him to squeeze out. He can tell that our boy has the same kind of mentality as those who have been trained to survive until the brink of death, which is quite fascinating for a young child. Observing this amazing talent, Lemur deems the young master to be quite interesting. Seeing Leon continue running and keeping up with him enraged Burin. He scoffs and questions just how Leon is still able to keep running, when he was told that the boy was too weak to train. He recalls the information provided by his messenger that the Saint of Rags assessed Leon with the curse of the bitter cold. Leon has a low chance of surviving childhood, let alone learning martial arts. And even at first glance, it's not a secret that Leon looks fragile. Annoyed at things not going according to plan and everyone proving him wrong, Burin grits his teeth in frustration before yelling out the move, or utilization. A burst of energy follows right after, with beams of light crackling around his body. In his childish rage, Burin has started using his aura in the race, just to show off that he's much better than everyone else. And he rushes forward with electric beams crackling and sparking around him, leaving behind Lunan and Leon who follow him. Witnessing the sudden change in speed and agility, Leon is quite taken aback. He observes that although Burin speaks like a noble, he is just a kid. In comparison, he thinks that Lady Lunan might actually be much more mentally mature than the brat who rushed ahead. Keeping his focus, he then concludes that this is just a test and not a competition, so there's no need to break his pace just because his opponent wants to show off. The sun shines down once again as the hot beams scorch the ground, and all the other students who withdrew from the test due to exhaustion fall to the ground as they catch their breaths. The two kids that called Leon names and bad-mouthed him observe and question how the boy is still able to keep running. Another student adds that she had heard of Leon being weak because he is ill, but this result contradicts everything. Our brave young master keeps on going while the students wonder how he does not get tired. But you see, Leon denies these absurd claims because he feels as though he is about to die due to the coldness in his body. And he adds to the bleak situation, expressing that it also feels like his heart and lungs are going to collapse at any moment, but he is determined. He utilizes the ring of fire to squeeze out any little stamina that he has left inside him. Whatever the circumstances, he smiles at the conclusion that the ring of fire is improving quickly, and he plans that he just needs to activate it to full force in order to feel its proper effects. But before he can proceed, the voice of the blue spirit pops up once again, calling our boy pitiful. He questions the state of his body, and claims that he is nothing but his future vessel. The spirit of the blue ball of fire reaches out once again beside him, as he demands him to hand over his body and soul instead of trying to surpass the blue-haired human. Exclaiming in refusal of the unfortunate situation, our hero calls for it to stop. But it's too late. The spirit yells out that it will freeze everything, and a wave of freezing coldness strikes Leon. He frowns in pain and agitation just as the strong cold hits him, but he knows that he must endure the cold in order to pass the test and move on. Slowing down his pace, he feels as if his mind is being taken over by rage, but he knows he must endure it and pretend as if nothing is wrong. Fed up with the nonsense, Leon now confronts the spirit, asking him to stop this sabotage and stay still because this instigating act won't work on him. But the demon lord is persistent and questions Leon's claim, elaborating that there is no human that can withstand his rage. The cold intensifies and cuts through our hero's vitals, as is apparent when he grabs hold of his chest from the immense pain. The freezing cold strikes again, and the demon lord viciously expresses a desire to see how long he can endure the pain. This small setback is nothing for the brave warrior, as Leon knows that he has to endure the pain no matter what. Because if he shows even the slightest hint of weakness, the demon will swallow him whole. The pain intensifies and grows, but Leon holds his own to survive. The blue ball of fire is enraged, and it yells in frustration, questioning why his rage won't work on the weak little boy. Seeing the outcome of pushing himself too far, the fatigue catches up to him. He expresses that his body feels like it's going to collapse, and he might die at any moment. His eyes begin to close slowly as his consciousness slips, and he acknowledges that he cannot breathe properly. The intense situation now lessens when, before more damage can be done, the brilliant sword of the Zygarde calls for the test to be over, and all the students participating in the test fall like flies to catch their breath and take some rest on the ground. Leon also joins the students to catch his breath as he sweats profusely, while Burin glares at him with a look of frustration, calling him a determined bastard in annoyance. While catching his breath and breathing heavily, he acknowledges that he almost died and concludes that this life isn't going to be easy either. Lunan looks over and observes our hero while he catches his breath, before the spirit of the demon lord appears once again to throw a tantrum. He yells and puffs up in rage and frustration, calling him a monstrous bastard and questions how he managed to pull it off. But answering the question, Leon reminds him, this is why he asked him to stop. Acknowledging the outcome of the limit testing training, he notices that the ring of fire has also grown, and thanks to the status window, his physical capacity has improved too. He aspires that if he continues to train like this, he can achieve greater feats. Just then, his attention is diverted, and he looks up to find a huge status window in front of him that notifies him of fulfilling the conditions, resulting in increased experience points and physical capabilities. Leon glares in astonishment at the status window with his mouth open, while the spirit of the demon lord exclaims and questions why he is getting extra experience points for putting up with his rage. He yells out and states it to be absurd. The students once again stand before the stage as Lemmer the Brilliant Sword commends everyone for doing their best, and he moves on to what he said before the test started. And hearing this, the looks on the students' faces show despair and nervousness as they await their inevitable failure of passing. But to their surprise, Lemmer playfully exclaims that he was just lying about cutting down the numbers to a quarter. This results in a loud and collective gasp from the students, which then transitions into yelling as the students enrage and express that they ran like hell because he said that. But Lemmer elaborates that he cannot fail so many people on the first day. He would not have anyone to teach. However, he also adds that he did not specify to fail them today. And transitioning back to horror, Lemmer fiercely warns the students that if they show the same results as today, most of them are doomed to fail. This alerts the students once again as they now become determined to train hard. He paces across the stage as he addresses the students, and he reminds them of running with all they had. He points out that none out of all the 160 of them kept it up till the very end, except for one. He also mentions students who gave up and started using aura. This alerts Burin, who is guilty of doing so, and he fears suspension over this act. But as he crouches down in front of Leon, he adds that he does not care how they do it, as they are the ones taking the test after all. And he makes an okay sign up front of Leon as he continues to tell them that if the students do as he says, they won't fail the test. But he also mentions that it won't be easy either. Moving on, he now faces the students once again and addresses them to tell that they are now provisional trainees, but will become official trainees once they pass the tests they will take in the next 6 months. He joyfully mentions that he is going to pick the top trainees, although he won't be the one to rank them. Calling off the trainees, Lemmer lets them go and guides them to the top-quality dormitories provided by the Zygarde family, mentioning that there is a training center next to it too. Tree leaves flutter, and the sun shines through the forest. We are now brought to the forest near the training hall, as Lemmer walks up to a mysterious figure in royal attire that awaits his arrival. Lemmer the Brilliant Sword winks and addresses the person in front of him as he states that someone has taken up his napping spot, and he reveals the person to be the Patriarch. Glenn, the Patriarch, acknowledges Lemmer's arrival and immediately asks him what had happened. And he slowly walks up to him as he asks the Patriarch why he is asking him, when he himself was here the entire time to witness the whole thing. But continuing with his statement, Lemmer explains that the Patriarch knows he has great eyes and can see the future and children. Elaborating, he tells that Burin and Lunan are greatly talented, as they already knew, and the other children also have a lot of potential to become great pillars of the family. But he adds that he cannot see anything in Leon. The Patriarch proceeds to acknowledge this information, while Lemmer adds that he was sure Leon was out of stamina, which he questions and asks how he was able to keep on running. He also tells the Patriarch that it is the first time after him that he has not been able to see anything in someone. And he expresses in joy that his life has been very boring ever since his energy core had been ruined. But this is going to be interesting. Hearing what he came to hear, the Patriarch leaps off of the stone that he stands on as he tells the Brilliant Sword, Lemmer, that being a trainee instructor is what he had wanted, and as he walks away, he asks him to focus on his duties and not get distracted. Lemmer obeys the Patriarch, but he also mentions that he believes there is going to be someone this year to whom he can leave his future, but the Patriarch disagrees and states it to be just a coincidence. He exclaims that the child cannot become a martial artist. Seeing the Patriarch off, Lemmer acknowledges this statement and smiles, before he exclaims that the Patriarch knows very well that it's not just a coincidence. Sighing and finally having the rest he needed, our hero sets off to the training center now that the test is all over with. 2 students glare and observe him as he steps away, and the blue ball of fire is amazed that Leon does not seem to stop training. The group of students that stand behind Leon as he walks away glare viciously at him with murderous intent, and as the sun sets over the training grounds, they exclaim it to be impossible. 2 students rally on about how there's no way Leon held on for that long, when they had heard that he was sick. They go on while the yellow-haired man from the indirect lineage, Crane Zygarde, gleefully assesses the situation. Crane addresses the situation and adds that he had heard Leon had some kind of miracle medicine, elaborating that the Saint of Rags gave him one long ago. This follows up with a shocking response from the 2 trainees who question the Saint giving him this kind of boost. They scream out to conclude that this means Leon had been dependent on the medicine to run that long, and he had the gall to show off. Concluding their assessment, Crane suggests that they go and teach the arrogant bastard a lesson for using cheats against them in the training. Transitioning right into the act of words, our hero is seen being slammed into a tree as he groans in pain. He slides down to the ground under the pale moonlight and asks why the group of students is doing this to him, but Crane scoffs and questions this statement from Leon. The other 2 students yell out and point at Leon as they elaborate that he got his direct lineage title taken away, but he is all arrogant because of some miracle medicine. They claim that if he did not have the miracle medicine given to him by the Saint of Rags, he could not have run that much today at the training. They go on to question how dare he use such dirty tricks, but Leon assesses the rage and anger the students are feeling, as he concludes that they are mad over something stupid. Proceeding with the confrontation, they start to prepare and stretch to launch an attack, as they ask the young assassin not to be scared because they are just here to talk. Crane leads the group as they stand before Leon and threaten him. He asks him to rest assured as this kind of thing happens often, before he rushes forward at the young assassin, exclaiming that the instructor asked them to talk more to each other. Leon slowly stands up, while the spirit of the Lord of the Demon Realm questions if he is just going to stand there, listening to them talk to him like that. He also mentions that he is supposed to be his vessel, but he expresses that it's not that big of a deal. However, in a shocking turn of events, Crane is struck away with a punch to the face as the vicious glare now transfers over to the brave warrior, Leon. A loud gasp follows right after as the two students are shaken up from the unexpected outcome, and this expression is also shared by the spirit of the Demon Lord, who had once closed his eyes to not see the unfortunate circumstance that might befall on his vessel. Crane is blown away and falls to the ground before the two students, who turn their heads in shock, and they take a glance at their fallen leader who got defeated with just one punch, while Leon expresses the same threatening tone. He questions their claim to talk, and he viciously glares once again to ask them to talk if they wanted to, so badly. The two students rush forward, giving it their best and attempt to hurt the talented trainee, but their attempts are futile because they are no match for the once best assassin in the world. Seeing the group fall to their knees, another student calls upon them to question what they are doing. He then takes up the mantle to take on the bastard as he rushes forward to strike a punch, while questioning the other's ability to defeat Leon. But before he can finish his sentence, his face meets with the fist of our hero as he falls to the ground as well. Leon continues to effortlessly defeat all the opponents that come charging at him, while the spirit of the Demon Lord watches in awe and remarks that his vessel is doing exceptionally well, calling the scene to be magnificent. The beaten-up students now beg for mercy as they fall to the ground and give up their hostile behavior to the one they called a bastard. In a threatening act of violence, Leon steps on Crane's hand as his wails echo throughout the forest trees, and he states to ask one more thing of him before he lets him go. Of course, Crane obediently wills to answer, falling under the agonizing pain as his voice stutters when he speaks. Leon questions who was the person that made them do this, and he immediately mentions if it was Buren. Crane snaps and is alerted upon hearing his name, but he mumbles that they did this without the young master knowing, and he is not related to this at all. Our hero seems to be confused and he expresses that such an answer is unexpected when he thought Buren hated him, but he concludes that maybe the guy is not too far gone. And following the confrontation, he questions Crane if he is safe to assume that he would not go on telling others about their conversation. Once again, Crane immediately mutters to agree to the terms. However, just then, the bully is grabbed by his hair and brought closer to Leon, where he glares viciously into his eyes to tell him that he better avoid him if he does not want to have another conversation with him. Filled with fear and horror, Crane immediately mutters that he will not even step on the young master's shadow. Leon lets him go, asking him to go away if he understands. The group rushes off, away from the threatening young master, but there is a mysterious man hiding among the shadows that watches over the situation. The man is revealed to be Lemmer, who smiles at the outcome of the quarrel as he deems it interesting to watch, and he expresses that it was like seeing the patriarch when he was young. Then he concludes that Leon seems to be talented in martial arts too, making him a true Zygarde. Lemmer's excitement reaches the skies as he mentions an unknown talent hidden among the most talented children, and he expresses that he is getting even more interested in our hero by the day. Not gonna lie, the dude is starting to creep me out. Bringing us back to the training halls, we see the former assassin gazing upon the message window as it notifies him of Raph, being satisfied with the conditions being fulfilled, and his agility being increased by 1. The spirit of the Demon Lord expresses rage and anger as it acknowledges the extra bonus points for something so pointless. He questions the increase in ability, but Leon asks why he doesn't know when he's the one who made the system. But the spirit grits its teeth in frustration as it confronts him and answers to tell that it's obvious that he does not know, especially when it has never been taken away from him before. He elaborates that Leon is stealing his power that remains in his original form. Now enlightened of such information, Leon acknowledges this fact in glee. This annoys the spirit as it flares up in anger and exclaims that the little bastard does not even show any gratitude. The young master ignores the spirit and sits across his desk with a cup in his hand, while the spirit scoffs in frustration. And it states that it has an offer to make, which sparks the curiosity of Leon, who asks about the offer. The spirit asks our hero to bet on something, with his rage and our hero's experience points on the line. If he loses, our hero receives his rage, but if he wins, he receives all his experience points. Sipping on his drink, Leon carefully gazes upon the message window as it displays the bet placed by the spirit of Raph. The condition is to pass as a top trainee for the training test, and the rewards and punishments follow. Leon questions if the bet has been placed upon the test that Lemmer has mentioned, and Raph confirms, adding that he said he will choose only the top trainees. Leon's gaze falls upon a card labeled Trade Option, and upon questioning, Raph tells him that he'll be given one of his traits, but the level will be decreased since he is inferior. Curious to know, another question is shot up upon what is the rage, and Wrath answers to tell that he will take on the emotion of rage that he possesses. Smiling widely, Wrath elaborates that what he will get is next to nothing, but with enough of it, he won't be able to control himself and will go insane. Hearing such a statement, our hero realizes this is what Wrath is going for, and as he sips his tea, he adds that considering how he usually behaves, it does not seem like Wrath is lying, and he has answered every question he has been asked honestly. Contemplating over the rewards of the bet, he remarks that it is not too bad, elaborating it to be a poisoned apple that he has to eat. But he considers it nevertheless, given that it will be difficult to get the top place if he was a normal ill child, but he remembers that he has reincarnated. Reaching forth his hand, Leon accepts Wrath's bet, making him smile widely as he remarks his choice to be wise. Blue flames flare around Leon's hand as the message window notifies that he has accepted Wrath's bet. He believes that if he utilizes his past life, he won't lose. At the break of dawn, heavy breathing and panting fill the air as students lay down on the ground, sweating profusely while trying to catch their breath. They express that they feel like their legs are going to break, and they cannot even stand with all the running that they have done this early in the morning. Looking back at the training sessions, Lemmer explains the stance that he has asked the students to do, elaborating it to be the horse-riding pose, which is every bit as silly as one can imagine. Despite him disagreeing with this claim, the students struggle to hold the position as they tremble and shake vigorously, while Lemmer continues to explain that this is the building block of martial arts. Recalling once more the struggling horse-riding pose, the students have now had enough, as one of them yells out to exclaim that he's done with this bullshit, and he now wishes to learn some actual swordsmanship from the head instructor. Another student adds to mention that they have done nothing except cycling between running and horse-riding poses. Transitioning to Burin, he calls upon the fallen students to stand up and stop complaining, as they are going to train their swordsmanship because it might get rusty if they don't focus on it too much. Wrath pops up beside Leon once again as they observe the group walking away to practice swordsmanship, and he asks if Leon is not going to go after them. But Leon walks away in the other direction, as he answers that he does not need to train his swordsmanship right now, because it's a waste of time for someone who's not even trained enough in the basics. Contemplating over his words, he adds that what he needs right now is not a sword, but physical strength, as his body is weaker than others because of the bitter cold curse. He expresses that the basics are the most important, both for the sake of growth and for training, and he reminds himself that there is no need to feel rushed. And so, taking his own advice to focus on training his body for now, our hero sits in a plank as sweat falls over his face profusely. As he proceeds with his exercise, a mysterious fellow spies on him from among the shadows, and it is revealed to be Lunan Sleon from the vassal family, and she quietly observes him. Hiding behind the wall, she notices that he is improving fast as he lifts weights increasingly each day. She conflicts that she had heard of him to be ill, which does not seem to be the case, as she concludes that it is a given that you will improve if you try every day. But she wonders if increasing the weight every day is just nonsense, as she mentions of him lifting 10 kilograms more than he did at the beginning of the week. She wonders what the reason is behind him being so consistent when he is ill, speculating if it's because he has a different attitude when he's training. And she slowly walks up to him as she concludes that there is something peculiar about him. Our hero innocently wraps up the band around his palm when he notices Lunan approaching him, and he curiously asks why she is here. Glaring at each other, the atmosphere becomes tense as no one seems to break the ice, and they just stare in silence. Lunan wonders what is making Leon's heart grow so rapidly. Suddenly, she feels a cold breeze rush at her, and her eyes widen as she stands still in a daze. Moving forward, she proceeds to sit beside him without warning and begins to lift the weights he has lifted. This strange act is looked upon in confusion by Leon, who does not understand what is going on. Annoyingly enough, Lunan follows him around the room and copies him by lifting different weights. While she does this strange act, she thinks to herself, it's not imagination. She elaborates that ever since she smelled that scent from Leon, the cool and pleasant scent, her body has felt lighter. She further explains that thanks to this strange phenomenon, she was able to lift a lot heavier than she usually can. The former assassin is curious to know what is making her act in a strange manner. So, he calls upon her to ask if she has something to tell him, but she blatantly denies it. Not thinking much of it, he walks away silently while Lunan continues to walk after him, concluding that she might have to follow him around a bit more. Buran enters the room with the other students as they observe Lunan following around Leon. There is no expression whatsoever on his face, while the other students scoff and question why such a girl is following around a guy like him. He then grabs hold of a wooden stick as he claims that the bastard is just wasting his time, and that kind of repetitive training has no point. He elaborates that Leon is weak, so he needs that kind of basic training. But Baron believes that even by doing something like that, he cannot reach the same level as them. Adding on to his assessment, he says that he does not know what the test will entail, but he expresses that in order to prepare, it's better to train in swordsmanship, at least for the sake of their own individual martial prowess. Calling upon his friends, he walks away as he asks them to ignore the bastard from the indirect lineage, and the results of the test will speak for themselves. While Leon is training, an unknown student walks up to him and calls his name. He introduces himself as Dorian and asks if he can train next to him and Lunan. The outsider contestant, Dorian, expresses that he wants to learn the correct procedure, but Leon tells him that he really does not care. Shuffling around his bag, Dorian thanks Leon for letting him train next to him. As a token of appreciation, he hands him a cookie to try. But refusing to have the cookie, he proceeds to offer it to Lunan, who sits beside him. However, he is taken aback in nervousness when he sees her eyes sparkle in awe at the mysterious food item that lays before her. Handing over the cookie to Lunan, he confusingly expresses her to be another unique one in the party. Leaves flutter away into the sky, signifying the time that passes by in the blink of an eye, and our hero trains diligently, running on tracks, lifting weights, and making sure he does everything to be in the best shape possible. Others are also shown to be working hard and doing their best to prepare for the test that might eventually decide their future. Leon now once again runs on the tracks as he pants and huffs for air. He narrates that it's been 6 months since they began training, adding that he ran every day until he was ready to die, and the backs of those that he saw in front of him while running are no longer there. However, he elaborates that when he breathed out a shaky breath and looked up, there were only 2 people left in front of him. Moving on, he tells us that after all that, finally, the morning of the test day has come, and families of the participants are seen walking into the arena as they anticipate their children's success. An announcer greets everyone gathered in the arena as his voice echoes through the large area, and he elaborates that the Guardians are all here to watch the event unfold. He also alerts them to follow his instructions carefully, and as Leon stands idly, Wrath appears before him to remind him of the bet that he had made all those months ago. And with a wide smile, he expresses that Leon was not able to surpass the 2 that are ahead of him. He warns him to be ready to take in his rage. But the young warrior is not fazed by the threatening words, and he shoos away the spirit of the demon lord as he expresses that this test is different, and they don't know for sure yet. Diverted towards Dorian, he then notices him laying down on the ground, and he asks what he is doing. Dorian has a look of despair on his face as he explains that he is nervous because of the test that is today and he had not slept all night. Seeing him fall into despair and agitation, our hero steps forward to address the situation and comfort him when Lunan approaches him and offers him a cookie to try, which he refuses. Just then, he exchanges looks with Burn who passes by him, and he annoyingly acknowledges the odd people that surround him. Among the crowd, Sylvia excitedly calls for Helen to look at her young master as she exclaims in awe at the strong and confident warrior. Helen also adds that he has endured 6 whole months of hard training, and she acknowledges the 2 students around him as she expresses that he has made some friends too, which she elaborates is not surprising to him because of his warm personality. She goes on to express that the young Master Leon has always been so thoughtful, ever since he was young, and acknowledging that he has even made friends makes her feel proud of him too. Listening to Helen's strong words, Sylvia smiles in awe of her child, when suddenly this heartfelt moment is disturbed by the sudden call for the Patriarch's entrance. Slowly stepping into the arena, the bright red attire and shiny blonde hair make a statement which intimidates the observing audience as they question his sudden appearance. Glenn Zygarde prepares to sit on his throne as the attendees bow down to him, and the audience expresses that he has never come to watch the test unfold before. The brilliant sword of the Zygarde family, Lemmer, also expresses concern as he asks about the Patriarch's sudden appearance. Acknowledging the questionable looks on the family's faces, Glenn states that this is an event that chooses the future of the family, and he questions why they act as if he shouldn't be here. Lemmer nervously then elaborates that it is not why he asked, and he expresses that the Patriarch is always welcome on the training grounds. Wasting no time, the elf then announces that since the Patriarch is already here, they will now quickly begin with the test, and he will now announce the details of this test. A green leaf falls to the ground, following the green aura that bursts out and falls upon the students that stand before Lemmer. The students are startled and taken aback as their eyes open wide at the sudden wave of strong aura that bursts right at them. Leon expresses this concern too, and Lemmer glares at the students with a menacing look while his green aura rushes forward. He elaborates that the students must make it through his aura, that is the test that they have to pass. Continuing with the test, Lemmer elaborates that aura is inherent to a martial artist, and this test will judge the student's worth as a martial artist. But before the students can begin the test, a commotion sparks up among the crowd of families, and a man stands up to question why this is a test when the students have just started learning aura. The small commotion turns into a situation when the man yells out that this is unfair because some of the students are yet to even learn aura. He exclaims that the head instructor had also been spotted sleeping during training too. Lemmer sighs at the unfortunate situation and explains it to the concerned families. The test is not just a manifestation of aura, but the real aura burst is the level of the soul that a martial artist achieves. He adds that this proves that a martial artist can manifest energy without aura, but the man that sparked the conversation does not seem to buy his explanation and raises concern once again. Suddenly, the Patriarch's voice remarks that the brilliant sword is not wrong. The man then acknowledges the Patriarch's glare as Glenn Zygarde explains that even if one individual has not learned aura, they possess their own aura burst based on the lives they have led.